Monkey D. Dragon is Ichiro Oda's parody of the Luciferian rationalist but proves the same point. A Luciferian rationalist is a commonly used character design that's been around forever but has been popularized by Fyodor Dostoevsky with his warfare with the cultural change in Russia. And there will always be cultural change, but One Piece is certainly a story about that, but the change should be sophisticated. It must not be naive, and Luciferian rationalists often fall in love with their perceptions of reality. Walter White is a classic example. He is a cold rationalist who will do whatever he wants to get whatever he wants, and he justifies his action on the account of his cancer diagnosis and financial instability. Literature is a complex arena and it's hard to traverse it and understand its true meaning. Sometimes there is no true meaning and it's all absolutely subjective. Sometimes there is a meaning that the author had intended, and sometimes it's boring and not as salacious as the audience had theorized. But for some pieces of literature, the meaning is so unclear and is full of so much mesmerizing profundity that it becomes a part of the culture and is explored for centuries. It's full of controversies and scandals and forms a cult. Is One Piece such a piece of literature? Well, the author Ichiro Oda is the highest selling mangaka of all time with a staggering net worth of $230 million. For a comparison, that's the net worth of Eminem, one of the fundamental rappers in hip-hop. The One Piece manga is the highest selling comic series by a single author, and the movies are some of the highest grossing movies for any anime. Some of the fundamental stories of humanity are the Bible, the Iliad, the Odyssey, the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, Brothers Karamazov, Crime and Punishment, War and Peace, Lord of the Rings, the Divine Comedy, Paradise Lost, and so on, that are genres in itself. Books and movies are inspired of them, where writers and filmmakers try to unveil the philosophy with their own interpretations. For example, since the Bible, there has been numerous canonical and non-canonical additions such as John Milton's Paradise Lost and Dante Alighieri's Divine Comedy. Since Maharishi Valmiki's Ramayana, there have been many interpretations of the story, and several non-canonical additions such as Ramcharitmanas, Kritibas Ramayan, and Meghnadbhat Kavya by Michael Madhusudan Datta. Crime and Punishment and Brothers Karamazov were inspirations for Martin Scorsese and led to the entire art house genre. Series such as Breaking Bad are inspired from Crime and Punishment, and True Detective has a very prominent part of Brothers Karamazov along with its Lovecraftian counterparts. Is One Piece a work of such a staggering profundity? Well, it's a story made for teenagers where a boy of rubber pulls out an octopus out of his pants, where a man nosebleeds so hard out of sheer perversion that he actually becomes sick. Is there some divine truth to all of this? We claim that it is. That One Piece can stand with the likes of Lord of the Rings and Brothers Karamazov. We will be covering One Piece related content in this channel frequently, but today we will talk about Monkey D. Dragon. A character who has appeared fewer times than even Akagami D. Shanks. A character who is mysterious and rarely present. If we can show some profundity through Monkey D. Dragon, perhaps we can make a case for other more prominent characters who are much more frequent in the series. Mythological allegories. The mythological allegories are clear in One Piece. One Piece has numerous Eastern and polytheistic religious metaphors. For example, Shanks is one of the greatest pirates of all time. He is red-haired and he has one arm. And even though he is fearsome and really powerful, he is an advocate for peace, such as Tyr, the god of war in Norse mythology, who is, despite being a god of war, tries to stop war. Tyr too is red-haired and has one arm that he lost to the beast Fenrir. Alexandria. There's also the legend of Momotaro, a boy who journeyed to fight the demon Akandoji and gets his riches. Momotaro was accompanied by a dog, a monkey and a bird. One can see that it's similar to Momonosuke, and the ones accompanying him are Yamato, who has the Inu Inu no Mi mythical variant, she's the dog. Luffy is of course the monkey, and Marco with his phoenix fruit is the bird. What does any of that has to do with Monkey D. Dragon? Well, Luffy is his son, and after Kaido's defeat, it's clear that Luffy is an allegory for Hanuman. Luffy climbed a mountain for his sick friend in the same way Hanuman lifted a mountain for his friend and the brother of his liege Lord Lakshman. Luffy ate a devil fruit that gave him the powers of the sun god, mistaking it for a fruit in the same way Hanuman tried to eat the sun, mistaking it for a mango. Hanuman is impervious to lightning, and so is Luffy, and they both can become giants. Luffy's finishing blow against Kaido is called Bajrang Gun. Luffy's father, Monkey D. Dragon, is shown to have abilities like that of the wind. Hanuman was the son of Pavan or the Wind Lord. But the allegories don't end here. Everything Oda does has a twist, and it isn't merely a one-on-one parallel. For example, as for the Momotaro allegory, it can be flipped and be used against the good guys. The world government considers the pirate and the D-clan to be their enemies and demonic. Greatest of all these demons in Marineford was Whitebeard, kinda like Akandoji. The ones that enforce the world government's will are the Marines, who were led by Sakazuki aka Akainu, which means red dog, Kuzan aka Aokiji, which means blue pheasant, and Borsalino aka Kizaru, which means yellow monkey, thus completing the characters in Momotaro. There are always two ways to look at the characters in One Piece. Delving deeper, Monkey D. Luffy, Monkey D. Dragon. We just learned that Kizaru means yellow monkey. Saru is Japanese for monkey, so why isn't Luffy called Saru D. Luffy? Why is not Dragon called Saru D. Ryu, as Ryu means dragon? Oda isn't shy from using Japanese names and cultures in his stories. In fact, the entire story of Wano is about Japan, so why do not the same here? The world government considers the D-clan and anyone who wants to learn the true history to be devils or demons. The celestial dragons consider themselves to be the gods, and the act of usurping God is synonymous with the devil. Lucifer is not the devil's name. In fact, Lucifer was a minor Roman god who was the light bearer for the goddess Aurora. Isaiah 14:12 says, "How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of morning, how art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations." The word Lucifer here means light bringer in Latin, and the translation should read, "O light bringer, son of the morning." Further proof of that is that the original Bible was in Hebrew and there is no mention of the word Lucifer. The devil is widely known as Lucifer because of John Milton's Paradise Lost, where Lucifer is termed as the devil. The Lucifer was God's favorite child and was cast down from heaven when he rebelled against God in his pride and vanity. Now, not only is Lucifer not devil, neither is Satan. Satan means the accuser in Hebrew, and he isn't the ruler of hell either. Satan is often described as the demon of wrath, like Asmodeus is associated with lust, unlike pride, as we know the devil is full of. The true nature and name of the devil is unknown, and there are various candidates such as Samuel, Satan, or Lucifer, but the Bible does describe the devil as a huge dragon or a beast that rebelled against God. Dragon. For one, we know that Oda loves wordplay, and he frequently uses the words to symbolize greater meaning. For example, Luffy is associated with 56 or Gomu, such as his fruit Gomu Gomu no Mi. Monkey D. Dragon is also a revolutionary who is rebelling against a group of tyrannical rulers who consider themselves gods. That's why he is specifically called Dragon and not Ryu. The same world government is now using a group of robots made in the image of the 7 warlords named Seraphims. The 7 warlords used to represent deadly scenes. Mihawk represented pride, Doflamingo represented wrath, Weevil represented sloth, Moria represented envy, Buggy represented gluttony, Boa Hancock represented lust, and Crocodile represented greed. The Seraphims or Archangels also represent a counter to the 7 deadly sins, the 7 virtues. Each of these virtues also has an angel assigned to it, Raphael. humility in opposition to pride; Michael, charity against greed; Ramiel, kindness against envy; Azrael, patience against wrath; Uriel, chastity against lust; Cassiel, abstinence against gluttony; and Gabriel, diligence against sloth. It so happens that in One Piece, the Judeo-Christian gods are at a war against polytheistic indigenous gods of Nordic, Indian, Greek, and even Persian origins. And that alone would make One Piece a very rich story full of allegories, but allegories should not be the end all be all for a story. If a story tells nothing new and is just a clever retelling for another story, then it isn't a very good story at all. And the deeper meanings come out to be just West versus East. The Western colonizers and some interpretations of the Bible consider all other gods to be false gods, and only the one from the Bible is the true God. This is seen in a debate between Nimrod and Abraham, where Abraham points out to Nimrod that wind, fire, and all of them have one creator, and since God has no creator, he is the ultimate creator of them all, and it's him who should be worshipped. Now, of course, this can be debated, and perhaps Abraham was talking about the fundamental nature of things and that all beliefs are equally valid and correspond to God instead of being a bigot. If we take this notion of East versus West, One Piece doesn't come off as a very deep story, but rather a critic of the West in nature of postmodernism. Perhaps One Piece is more than that, and we will go deeper with Dragon himself. The gods of thunder. Dragon in the story has some sort of ability related to storm, or lightning, or perhaps the weather itself. Many have guessed around, pondered as to what is the true nature of Dragon's devil fruit. Is it a zone? If so, is it Tori Tori no Mi model Thunderbird? Or maybe Dragon is a Logia. But what Logia would Dragon be? A Logia for air? That doesn't explain the lightning or the rain. Or perhaps Dragon is weather itself. Though very rare, some Logias are more of a concept than any singular element. For example, Aokiji isn't snow, that's Monet. Aokiji is cold itself. Similarly, Greenbull is the forest itself, all of flora in its absolute majesty. And this is just a theory, maybe Akainu isn't just magma but heat itself. So it's quite possible that Dragon is weather itself. Maybe Dragon uses a form of Haki that produces lightning and storm. If the clash of Haki amongst the greatest pirates split the sky, then perhaps it isn't so out of the realm of possibility that Dragon can manipulate his surroundings with Haki, so much so that he can change weather. But most signs point towards the idea that Dragon is an awakened Logia user. We have seen what Aokiji and Akainu did on Punk Hazard. Two absolute powerhouses clashed and changed the very ecosystem of an island. And far before that, Crocodile changed the weather of Alabasta. In the recent chapters after the end of Wano, Greenbull makes permanent changes to Wano's biodiversity with his Mori Mori no Mi. So maybe Dragon has an awakened Logia, or like his son, it's a mythical variant of the human fruit, moral Zeus, moral Thor, Regine, Susanoo, and they are all gods of thunder. Dragon may or may not have one of the aforementioned or none of the aforementioned abilities. After all, it's Oda's ability to surprise us with something truly unique is one of the very many things that makes One Piece interesting and beautiful. Dragon's portrayal as a carrier of rain and lightning is packed with symbolism. In every culture, the god of thunder and or lightning or weather is the king of gods. Even in Nordic mythology, where that isn't the case, where Odin, the god of war and wisdom, is the king of gods, the pantheon's most famous Thor happens to be the god of thunder. But why is that? Why is humanity so fascinated with thunder, lightning and storms and weather? Well, the human civilization grew prosperous around rivers and freshwater bodies. The Mesopotamian civilization grew around the rivers Tigris and Euphrates. The Indus Valley civilization grew around the river Indus. The Egyptian civilization grew around the river Nile. We started farming about the river banks as the soil there was giving and bountiful. And for farmers, rain is a blessing. Rain follows thunder and lightning. Hence the Greeks prayed to Zeus, the Indians prayed to Indra, and the Romans to Jupiter for rain because rain meant good harvest. For the Vikings, who were cursed with unyielding lands and went out to conquer, they did so in ship, and the seas were dangerous and frightening as they were a deadly labyrinth of storm and hurricanes. Hence it was Thor who provided them with the courage to charge such seas. God of thunder are always a dominant force of nature, and they are almost always at the top of the hierarchy of gods because of the role they play in the sustenance of civilization by bringing them rain. And though perhaps the most ancient humans didn't know this, life on Earth started with breakdown of amino acids via electric charges. Lightning also helps regulate the nitrogen cycle. Lightning is energy. Like sunlight, they both bring forth life and sustenance. So it's clear why we humans give such importance to gods that represent thunder and rain and storm. We might not have always understood how exactly lightning plays a role, but we have definitely felt the importance. But that's not all.
Power at 400% capacity.
How about that?
The weather is a curious thing really. It's absolutely chaotic and unpredictable. It's almost impossible to track every single particle in the atmosphere, and hence why we can't predict the weather with an absolute certainty. The weather represents chaos, and the mighty being that has control over it must be a very powerful figure. These beings related to thunder and lightning, these products of chaos, represent parts of our own mind. The storm and the thunder and the lightning is the path through which one must craft their destiny. Life is set with unpredictable storms and terrible weather. It's chaos. The storm is the subconscious that we must face and earn mastery over. God of thunder, the beings who control weather, a chaotic system, represent just that. Hence, it's no wonder that dragon is lightning and thunder and rain. Rain brings harvest, it extinguishes wildfires, brings peace and sustenance, much like the revolutionary army of Monkey D. Dragon. And lightning and storm are a part of unpredictable systems, much like the world of One Piece. The world of One Piece is literally about pirates in the sailing around, going on all sorts of great and terrible adventures and in the Grand Line. The weather is so unpredictable and the compasses don't work. And of the scandals and wars and battles, Dragon is one of the biggest players. That is one of those individuals who have mastery over the system. He is certainly a master of whatever devil fruit he has. He is certainly a master of Haki, as he has trained Sabo, and Luffy's will reminded Ivankov of him. Dragon is the bringer of rain that heals land of tyranny and corrupts regimes. He is also the storm that hits tyranny with a formidable force. He is the god of thunder to Luffy's sun god. The Luciferian rationalist. In the late 19th century, rationalism was at a rise in Europe, and in counter to that, Fyodor Dostoevsky wrote his works criticizing the rise of atheism. Why were they all against atheism? Why was it so important that humanity on some fundamental level keep faith in God? Perhaps God not as an entity or as preachings of a bigot, but all that's good in humanity and a profound faith to never break away from it. Soren Kierkegaard once said that the opposite of sin isn't virtue but faith. Let's take a small example. Let's say you're a student who is having financial issues and you need to buy books and laptops and pay a hefty tuition. You got two choices. A. You can steal the money. B. You can study hard and save it slowly and apply for jobs. Which one you will choose? A is a very lucrative idea. You can justify theft with it just being a means to a justified end. After all, if you pay for your tuition, get your books and your laptop, you can be free of financial stress and study with a clear mind, and you can spend more time studying since you would not have to do a part-time job. And if you study with a clear mind, you will be able to study well and pass your exams with higher grades. You will then get a better job and help your family. Not being in financial stress will also provide your family with wellness, and they'd live a life free of stress. What is one act of the against a mountain of virtues? Surely this apparent sin is therefore justified, right? No. Dostoevsky, Tolkien, Milton, Kierkegaard and the Bhagavad Gita, Ramayana and the Bible, and maybe even Oda argue that despite all justified reasons, you should pick B. That the ends do not justify the means, and that we humans should not be prideful of our rationality. The human mind can also see so far, and it cannot predict every possible outcome. For example, if you steal a huge sum of money, how would you justify your income? What about the taxes? And very important importantly, what about the very soul? Wouldn't that one act of evil normalize theft? Wouldn't you keep stealing and justify it each time? In Milton's Paradise Lost, Lucifer goes against God, and in Ramayana, Ravan is an intellectual and a warrior with short-sighted justified reasons such as overthrowing the tyrannical Indra. In the Mahabharata, Duryodhana has justified reasons for thinking his father was usurped out of his right to be the king. The rationality is exactly what Dostoevsky was worried about. Humans and their flaws of falling in love with their own rationality rather than what the universe entails is what causes their downfall. This isn't restricted to atheists, as this arrogance is found in religious zealots, cultists and bigots as well, who think their words and interpretations are same as those of God. One might say a scientist, a true scientist despite his agnosticism, might represent the true nature of faith, where he studies what God has created truthfully instead of dictating his own rationalized interpretations. Well, what does this have to do with One Piece? And most importantly, isn't Dragon also a revolutionary, a rebel? How can Luffy be a good guy if he's a pirate, and if piracy is akin to stealing? Well, this is the genius of Oda. One Piece is all about courage and showing spirit and following your dreams even if there is no way through. This is faith. Even when very logical interpretation of the situation demands you to do something wrong for an advantage, you do what's right regardless. And we have seen Luffy do that. And especially Dragon, who despite being a revolutionary doesn't condemn murder and lets his son choose his own path. But piracy is an adventure, and so is theft in similar regards, no? The act of theft itself might be daring, but it's easy to give in to your worst feelings and commit thievery. The imagined riches and delusions of grandeur about all the things you can do with that money makes theft not an adventure. Similarly, how Luffy doesn't want to know where Loftel is, because then the adventure will be boring. Not stealing is a bigger adventure, as one cannot see the immediate advantages that theft would bring, and thus there's an uncertainty, and therefore keeping faith is the act of greatest courage. Before the events of The Hobbit, before Frodo and Sam, before Gandalf, everyone believed great armies will defeat Sauron. Many kingdoms tried amazing forces to defeat the evil of Ravan. Raskolnikov in Crime and Punishment believed his act of murder is justified, but it's ordinary simple acts of kindness that defeated Sauron. And it was a kind of honorable king who defeated Ravan, who did not seek power but justice, and who had respect for and earned respect from even his enemies. If we made you believe that Oda's stories was about East versus West, then it wasn't. Dragon is well named, but so are the Tenryubitos, aka Celestial Dragons. They have the word Ryu, and that makes the story more even. For example, the Eastern-wise dragon Momonosuke helps fight Kaido, the dragon who wanted to usurp Joy Boy, aka the Sun God. Oda's story is about the loss of culture and destruction of humanity under people who believe themselves to be God, but are nothing but people who justify cruelty for the sake of power. Every tyrant has a justified cause in One Piece. Big Mom forces a utopia on people. Kaido believes in the natural selection and the rule of the strongest. Arlong justified his cruelty and racism against humans with the racism he faced. Crocodile believed in power and any means to seize it, and so on. Truly Luciferian rationalists are people like Blackbeard who have a very ends justify means kind of approach. He shows that Blackbeard wants freedom and success of dreams, and that puts that idealized virtue over what's right. Meanwhile, Dragon or Luffy would not do that. They won't do something wrong to meet their ends. Oda shows that in the end of the Celestial Dragons and pirates like Blackbeard fall under the same mold. Rationalist on either side of the spectrum. While Blackbeard believes in absolute freedom but does heinous acts to achieve them, the Tenryubitos, aka Celestial Dragons, enforce absolute order under a disguise of peace and security that takes away people's freedom. Both rationalize their actions to be that of a greater good. Monkey D. Dragon stands as a satire and a parody to them all. He is called the dragon, but he isn't draconian. He's a rebel, but he isn't prideful. He understands the necessity for a compassion. Dragon was in a fight against the celestial dragons and the world nobles, and it'd be effective for him to use Sabo as a pawn, to hold him hostage. Even if the nobles themselves tried to kill Sabo, it was done in secret. They would not want the situation with Dragon to be public and see one of them in a position of weakness. That'd certainly be a good strategy for Dragon, and had this been Game of Thrones, Dragon would have went with it. And why wouldn't he? Rebel in real histories have done so. The French Revolution got ugly and the Russian Revolution got even uglier. But once again, that's cold rationality at play. It's a tool maybe that needs mature hands. But Frankie isn't to be blamed for making inventions that were used wrongly by other parties. Nico Robin isn't at fault for being born. And Sabo isn't at fault for being born a noble. What matters is what Sabo does, and what matters is what Dragon did. The sins of the father didn't pass on to the son. Crime and Punishment, Lord of the Rings, etc. are all stories that are about handling change with sophistication. The change is imminent and no one can fight it. Raskolnikov's inability to accept his situation is what led to his destructive choices. Middle-earth changed and was left with little magic and broken hearts, and that's life. Green beautiful fields left in ruins, forests destroyed, homes burned for nothing, for the satisfaction of a few people. But One Piece says something more. Perhaps we can make a change for the positive. Perhaps change can be beautiful. If the coming of night is a change that's universal, then be a moon. If the night is too dark, then that means the sunrise is swift afoot, and not by cold mechanical schemes, but by staying true. The true rebellion isn't necessarily driving out the dark, but shining brightly in it, no matter how dark it gets. For friends, for family, and as an extension of the world, perhaps you can make someone laugh. Perhaps you can make the cherries blossom again. Perhaps you can bring back rain back to a dry land. Perhaps you can bring life to a dead man.